Going to COP29, can you believe it?
Yeah. It's
Day
amazing.
one.
It's amazing.
You
Day one.
excited?
Beautiful. Yeah.
Here we are, downtown, Old City, Azerbaijan. All right, this is awesome. Sorry.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy.
Wow. So what am I drinking?
You're drinking black tea.
Uh-huh.
Black
Special
tea
from where?
from Azerbaijan.
Okay.
It's made in samovar. This whole thing is called samovar. And it's usually brought outside, made with coal. Yeah, we prepare with fire.
Is it helping the climate or hurting the climate?
It's neutral. It's
It
hurting nobody.
It takes tea trees, so you're planting trees.
Yeah, we're
somewhere.
planting trees, but also
There you
at
go.
the same time it's healing hearts.
Ah,
Yeah.
very
Whenever
good.
we're sick, we always have tea.
All right, this is a big deal, number one. So we're getting our water bottle, our COP water bottle. Hello, can I video you?
Yeah, why
What
not?
do you got here?
We got some bottles for you.
All right.
Can I scan your badge?
Yes, sir.
You come from US or
Everybody's talking about these water bottles.
they're
They
like-
must be amazing.
without us? Because there's going to be like no call.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Here we are, COP29. A lot of people. A lot going on here. All right, this is my new roommate and friend.
Hello, I'm Ned, I'm 19, I'm from the UK, as you can probably tell. But yeah, so I'm at COP with the Christian Climate Observers Programme, and we've just heard about the new text that's been released, draft text, and it's not looking positive. I've just been sitting in the back of some interviews with NGOs representing the developing world, and it sounds like they're going to veto it as much as they can. So it's kind of an uncertain place at the moment as to what's actually going to happen, but it's also very exciting.
All right, questions for you related to your own experience.
Cool.
In the UK, what do you see are some of the climate challenges?
Okay. The climate challenges, the main one is about convincing people that it's in their interest to have these radical climate policies. Because people don't support climate action in the UK, they don't support radical climate action. They know that it's a problem, but as soon as you say, oh, this will make your bills higher, understandably people don't like it. And so that's a real challenge, because there's only so much government can do that's unpopular before they just lose the next election. And so it's really been a hindrance. And we've got our media's also, there's lots of climate deniers in the media as well, which encourage that. So yeah, I think the biggest problem is changing hearts and minds, and not everyone can come to a summit like this and see and talk to the people from developing countries or Pacific Islands and hear about their story, because that would radicalize a lot of people, but obviously it's not possible.
So what do you see as being some of the biggest problems in the Western world then in regards to climate awareness?
I just don't think in the Western world we really understand the scale of the problem that we've caused. Like, it's just for example, these talks where we've just announced £250 billion for climate finance when developing countries need a minimum of about $1 trillion. It's just like there's a complete lack of interest or care or understanding of other countries in the world that we're not necessarily economically reliant on.
Would you say it's ignorance or denial?
I think it's a mix of the two, and I think there's also a lot of rhetoric around about preserving the Western way of life in different countries. The American way of life, the British way of life is the same thing, and that often goes hand in hand with preserving our quality of life. And I believe that we can preserve our quality of life in most ways while taking very radical climate action, but a lot of people don't, and a lot of people think we need to sacrifice things, and that's a really unpopular message. So. ignorance, denial, and a little bit of selfishness sometimes. Ignorance about the real challenges that people are going through in other parts of the world, and denial about the scale of the damage we've caused ourselves and our responsibility for it, and a little bit of selfishness when it comes to people who just don't want to, understandably, don't want to do things that they've been told will lower their quality of life, whether they actually will or not.
What would you say to the Christian church, the capital C?
Yeah.
What would you say to the church in the Western world about their position on climate change?
I think we need to unite around a position on climate change, most of all, because the church in the UK, the Anglican Church, is really good on climate change. But there's other churches that really aren't good on it. I think in America, in particular, there's lots of church groups that aren't good on climate change, and we can't afford to let climate change be a divisive issue like other social issues. The church is divided on a huge range of things, on a huge range of social issues, and we can't afford for climate change to join that list. So I think we need to make sure that whatever our differences on scripture and theology in the church, on social issues, we don't let that get in the way of coming together and pushing for radical environmental change, because there is no doubt, at least in my reading and anybody I've spoken to here, in our reading of the Bible, that God wants us to protect the planet that He gave us, and protect it for future generations of people and for the wider environment. We're here as stewards, not as masters or tyrants, and so we need to live up to that, and I think we've failed to, especially since the Industrial Revolution. But I think it goes back even further than that. Humanity seems to naturally incline towards trying to be controlling and being a tyrant over nature, and we can't keep doing that.
So what do you think about the global South countries and our responsibility to them?
I think the term global South, I mean, this is a very personal opinion, but I think the term global South is too broad. I understand why people use it, but there's a massive difference, for example, between India and Tuvalu. There's countries in the Pacific that have no responsibility for climate change whatsoever, or at least a negligible one, and they're the ones that are being affected worst and first, and that is the biggest climate injustice of our time. But when you've got countries like China, who are claiming that they're still a developing country and therefore are refusing to commit into any kind of ambitious finance for other countries, that's a really outrageous use of very generalised emotional terminology to kind of get themselves out of responsibility. And so, yeah, the global South is a real mix of countries and places, and places like India should be doing a lot more than they are. Places like the Pacific, we should be doing a lot more to help them than we are, and places in Africa, it's important that we do give more money to developing countries in Africa who are being affected by climate change and to displaced people, but we've got to make sure that money is actually going to the people and not to the governments, because there are governments, not just in Africa, but across the world, corruption is a very big thing in lots of governments, and when it comes to climate finance, we can't afford to let only 15% of the money we give get to the people that we intended it for, because that's just not good enough. And so we need to help them, but we've got to be careful about how and who we're targeting the most.
Any last profound nuggets that you would want to say to the youth of this planet?
To the youth of this planet?
What would you say to the adults of this planet?
Well, I'll just say that, look, we might not be very powerful now, but we're the ones that are going to be writing the history books about your generation, so in a polite way, get your act together if you want us to remember you well, especially world leaders. That's what I'd say. Young people need to realise, I think, that's what I say to young people, that they've got so much more power than they think, just because we're the ones that are going to be writing. We're going to be writing the legacy of these political leaders, the people here who are failing to decide. We're the ones that will, in 100 years' time, be able to describe the actions of the Saudi, for example, the Saudi and Chinese delegations who are trying to mess this all up. And we're not going to be kind to them unless they start to change their action and reflect on what they're doing. So there's a lot of power there for young people if they choose, if they realise it, and that can be a real motivator, as well as for me, as well as a religious one, to realise that actually we do have the power to write the history of this.
And do you plan to write about that?
I don't know. I write about things, but no, I think I've been pretty clear about what I think about the culpability of leaders here, and I'm sure in 50 years' time that would be quite a mainstream opinion, because there's a lot of people on. And there's so many cases in history where somebody is accepted at the time, and then we look back and say that was actually horrific, that was awful. I mean, look at apartheid in South Africa, slavery and the Jim Crow laws in America, places like that. And I think it is similar with climate change. You've got these people, the media, who have to be unbiased, presenting these stories as two-sided, saying actually, maybe these countries like China and Saudi Arabia and the US do have a reason for being so selfish about it, but in 50 years' time we'll realise they don't, and we won't remember them well. That's my view on it. There's a lot of power in that, because these, everybody can agree that politicians just want to preserve their legacies, and we're the ones that get to decide what those legacies are.
Very well spoken.
Thank you.